defendant, a felony upon Nicole Brown guilty of murder, upon Ronald Lyle Goldman, a human being.
The defendant having been acquitted of both charges, he is ordered released forthwith.
A Dateline special, the end of the trial of the century.
This was a case based upon the evidence. We really believed in this case and in O.J. Simpson.
I deeply believe that this country lost today. Justice was not served.
Tonight, how did the jury reach its verdict with such speed? How could blacks and whites see the case so differently? What does it mean for the families, for the lawyers, for America's justice system? And what's next? The very latest on the verdict in the O.J. Simpson trial. From Los Angeles, here is Stone Phillips.
Good evening. Just a little more than 10 hours ago, it seemed all of America and half the world stopped cold to hear the fate of one man, O.J. Simpson, found not guilty of two murders that have mesmerized us all for more than a year. And now Simpson is back at home, surrounded by his family and friends, in the mansion that was a key part of this case, and where he is once again a free man. But tonight, long simmering tensions among Simpson's victorious defense team have boiled over and become public. Jane?
And thanks, Stone. We'll talk with Johnnie Cochran, and also for the first time with Simpson friend and attorney Robert Kardashian. He'll break his long silence on accusations that he may have covered up the crime. And he'll tell us what Simpson did today and what he might do next. But first, a recap of this incredible day and the verdict that prompted tears of relief on one side of the courtroom and tears of rage on the other. Here's John Larson.
All right, ladies and gentlemen and the jury, I'm going to ask that you carefully listen to the verdicts as they are being read.
For 15 months, the world had been waiting. For 15 months, he had been waiting.
All right, Mr. Simpson, would you please stand and face the jury?
Outside, it seemed like the Academy Awards as spectators and hundreds of cameras waited for the news. Tens of millions watched, holding their breath. Inside, it was one camera, trained on the defendant, as Court Clerk Deidre Robertson delivered the verdict at 10:09 a.m. Pacific time.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder.
Simpson thanked the jury with a wave.
A felony upon Nicole Brown.
Outside court, stunned looks and cheers.
County of Los Angeles.
Simpson listened to the court read the verdict in Ron Goldman's death.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder.
Not guilty of both murders. Goldman's sister, Kim, broke down.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, is this your verdict? So say you one, so say you all.
Simpson hugged his lead attorney, Johnnie Cochran, shook hands with the man who'd first taken his case, Robert Shapiro, and embraced his friend and lawyer, Robert Kardashian. As each juror was asked to confirm their vote, Prosecutor Christopher Darden and lead prosecutor Marcia Clark sat stone-faced. And Simpson's eldest son, Jason, appeared overcome with emotion as his father's trial came to a close.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to at this time thank you for the service that you've given to us.
Within the hour, in the same courtroom, Jason Simpson read a prepared statement from his father, taking his father's case to the court of public opinion.
I'm relieved that this part of the incredible nightmare that occurred on June 12, 1994 is over. My first obligation is to my young children, who will be raised the way that Nicole and I had always planned. But when things have settled a bit, I will pursue, as my primary goal in life, the killer or killers who slaughtered Nicole and Mr. Goldman. They are out there somewhere. Whatever it takes to identify them and bring them in, I'll provide somehow.
It was all strangely reminiscent of a June day in 1994.
Mr. Simpson is a fugitive of justice right now.
When Simpson, facing arrest, also denied involvement in the killings. Then it was Robert Kardashian who read a letter from Simpson, who sounded more suicidal than relieved.
Please think of the real O.J. and not this lost person.
And there was another parallel. Last year, Simpson turned up in a Bronco with his friend Al Cowlings at the wheel, pursued by a squadron of police cars.
This is AC. I have O.J. in the car. He's still alive because he got a gun to his head.
Today, Simpson seemed to retrace the route back home in another white vehicle, this time cleared of all charges. And it was Al Cowlings who greeted Simpson near the very spot where his family feared Simpson would kill himself 15 months ago.
Mr. Simpson, needless to say, is ecstatic. He wants to get on with his life.
Chief among Simpson's concerns are 9-year-old Sidney and 7-year-old Justin, his children with Nicole, last seen publicly with their father at their mother's funeral.
We have 2 children that we love, and we're going to do what we can, the very best for the children.
But how quickly Simpson can take custody of his children is an open question. Nicole Brown Simpson's parents, Lou and Juditha Brown, were given guardianship of the children last year. The Browns now believe the children's father murdered their mother, and a judge would have to approve any change in the child custody arrangement.
There's just a lot of mending and healing that needs to take place there, and for me to answer, I can't really answer that question because we just really have to take it one day at a time.
Though District Attorney Gil Garcetti said the case was closed,
It's over from our viewpoint.
Simpson's legal problems may not be over yet. There are still those multi-million-dollar civil lawsuits filed by the families of the victims. And Fred Goldman today said justice had not been served.
Last June 13th, 94, was the worst nightmare of my life. This is the second.
In the end, the case that so devastated the victims' families divided the nation along sharply defined racial lines. And from the looks of it, the reaction today seemed, in some cases, to mirror recent polls that showed most blacks believed in his innocence, most whites in his guilt. The man who won Simpson's acquittal today said the verdict was based not on race, but on the evidence.
O.J. Simpson couldn't have committed this crime. That there would be a reasonable doubt.
As for the jury, comprised of 9 blacks, 2 whites, and 1 Hispanic, they had very little to say to the press.
I think we did the right thing. You know, matter of fact, I know we did.
Speaking much more loudly with their verdict, setting perhaps the most famous defendant in American history free.
So say you one, so say you all.
The proof wasn't sufficient for this jury, but for Los Angeles Police Chief Willie Williams, today he said he will not reopen the investigation into the murders. He does not believe there is another killer or killers still out there. Still ahead tonight, the first reaction since the verdict from Nicole Brown's father and sister. And you'll hear from O.J. Simpson's attorney and very close friend, Robert Kardashian.
I have confidence, a lot more it seems than Ms. Clark has, of their integrity. And that they will find, as the record stands now, that I did not, could not, and would not have committed this crime.
From the first, the polls showed us to be a nation divided by race on the question of O.J. Simpson's guilt or innocence. And a 9-month-long trial hasn't changed a thing. There was perhaps no better illustration of that than the very different reactions of students today at historically black Howard University and New York's Columbia University as the verdict was read. Although not every African American thought O.J. Simpson was innocent and not every white person thought he wasn't, the latest NBC News poll shows the races remain decisively split. 63% of whites believe he's guilty, 57% of blacks say he is not. Why did blacks and whites see this case so differently? What, if anything, did race really have to do with this trial? Troubling questions, and tonight Elizabeth Vargas has some equally troubling answers.
When people talk about how black people believe that O.J. is innocent or maybe he didn't do it, it seems to be a perception that is something wrong with us because we believe that.
Pamela Hayes is a former prosecutor and now a criminal defense lawyer and host of a New York radio talk show on the Simpson trial.
That information, that statement is challenged, so Van Adder's credibility is challenged.
As the trial wound down, Hayes said she had no problem understanding the racial divide.
I think one of the things is life experience. We've seen the system evolve to the point where police officers who are sworn to do a duty to protect and serve citizens don't do that.
What do you say to people who say, look, there is evidence implicating O.J. Simpson in this murder? We have DNA evidence, we have hair and fiber evidence, we have a history of domestic violence that may have led to something like this. How do you respond to that?
Within that evidence that the prosecution has presented, there are some reasonable doubts for me as a professional, as a lawyer, as a black woman living in America. I have some doubts about some of the things that went on.
Sustained.
Hayes says her doubts grew with the prosecution's controversial witness, Detective Mark Furman.
As long as there are people like Mark Furman in the mix, I have a very serious problem. This is a guy who told us on tape that he fixes things, he brutalizes, he lies under oath.
And you say on your oath that you have not addressed any black person as a nigger or spoken about black people as niggers in the past 10 years, Detective Furman.
That's what I'm saying, sir.
But what do you say to people who say that, you know what, as egregious as his conduct may have been right now, Mark Furman isn't on trial, O.J. Simpson is?
Mark Furman's credibility is on trial. And for those people who say that that is wrong, they're wrong.
And your doubt is based on
the fact that he was alone there for some 15 minutes. The glove was just there, that he just happened to see a speck, a pinhead on a Bronco, that they just happened to have these socks right in the middle of the hallway where they saw no blood with the naked eye, but now they saw blood later. It's just a lot for me.
Does that mean that these characteristics that Mr. Simpson has that are also found in the Bundy Walk bloodstain are only found in approximately 1 out of 170 million Caucasians or African Americans?
Yes, approximately. How do you look at that DNA and those astounding numbers that matched O.J. Simpson's blood to the crime scene and the victim's blood to O.J.'s car and O.J.'s home at Rockingham? Where do you find doubt in that?
I don't have any doubt that it's probably factually correct that it's O.J.'s blood. The question that I have that you have to get to before you even get to the DNA is that evidence competent in that, how did it get there?
Hayes says she also has a problem with Detective Philip Van Adder's role in handling the blood evidence.
I'm not happy with the fact that Van Adder walks around with a vial of blood in his pocket.
Some people would say it's kind of a fantastic theory that all these police officers meet on the night of the crime and say, how do you do, good evening, my name is, and let's all conspire.
That's not how it happens, Elizabeth. Maybe they didn't conspire in the way you think. We have all different sorts of conspiracies. People are looking the other way. Other people are winking.
The notion of a police conspiracy doesn't shock Pamela Hayes. She prosecuted one of New York's most infamous police corruption cases when 13 officers were indicted on charges ranging from theft and burglary to the possession and sale of drugs.
I could tell you, as someone who grew up in Harlem, I was shocked. I wanted to believe that police were good people and that they just couldn't do this. But, these things happen.
I'd ask you to look at what's been depicted as sake.
Hayes also believes it's possible the bloody socks were planted.
I just don't think he would have left them there cold in his living room. It was a pristine living room with a white rug.
They weren't in his living room. They were left in his bedroom.
In the bedroom. Why didn't he just wear the socks?
Well, you might make the argument that a killer in a rush to get back and make an airplane might not be thinking clearly.
But why wouldn't he just leave the socks on? You couldn't see the blood with the naked eye. What would be the big deal? Why take them off?
What about O.J. Simpson's behavior with the Bronco chase, for example? A lot of people say that looks very incriminating.
I think there's
affirm it. And we haven't been talking about the domestic violence card and the prosecution playing the domestic violence card. That's because it is a legitimate issue to be inquired into, and to even talk about it in such a way that it's a game trivializes its significance amongst both African Americans and whites.
You spoke to Christopher Darden, prosecutor in this case, on and off throughout the trial. How difficult was it for him today to stand before the families of the victims and feel that he let them down?
You know, I can't presume to speak for Chris Darden, but I can say that he is a very strong and tough prosecutor, and I can say that he takes his responsibilities and obligations very seriously. Now, those of us who are trial attorneys know what that moment is like, the moment that you lose a case. It's a very emotion-filled moment. There's a lot of things packed in there. I think that he felt that he gave it his all, and certainly wanted to see it come out in a certain way that it didn't come out.
Yeah, a bitter loss. Robert Tarver, thanks for joining us tonight from Chicago. Just ahead on this special edition of Dateline, Katie Couric's interview with lead Simpson attorney Johnnie Cochran, and coming up next, my interview with Simpson confidant Robert Kardashian.
I can't go on. No matter what the outcome, people will look and point. I can't take that.
Robert Kardashian, from the day after the murders to this day of the verdict, he has seemingly always been there. O.J. Simpson's close friend, who went on to become one of his defense attorneys, silently doing his part to win Simpson's freedom. But suspicions and questions have lingered, the prosecution maintaining that Kardashian helped his friend cover up the crime. Tonight, Kardashian speaks out for the first time since the murders. Not guilty. What do those words mean to you tonight?
So much. I get chills thinking about those words. I don't think, other than when I first learned of these murders, and other than on the 17th of June last year, I don't think I've ever been so scared in my life, so anxious. It's been such a roller coaster ride that my emotions are at their end.
You are one of O.J.'s closest friends. You were there in the courtroom at his right side when the verdict was read. Tell me about that moment.
Before we went out into court, O.J., Johnnie, and I prayed. And we went out there. And when the jury read this verdict, it was such a feeling of relief. And actually, we were stunned, not so much by the acquittal, but just that it was an end. It was the final chapter.
Is that how you see it? And is that how O.J. sees it? That this is the final chapter in all of this?
No, we don't know what the future is going to bring. I do know that O.J. has said in the statement that his son read, he wants to find out who committed these horrible crimes. And he says that he will do whatever it takes to find out who did this.
What did the two of you do after you left the courtroom?
We went back to the center. They undid his handcuffs. They brought his belongings. They fingerprinted him, and he was released. It was done in a matter of 2 minutes.
The ride to Rockingham. Helicopters overhead, people passing by in cars, waving, cheering. What was the scene like inside the van with him?
We were surprised at what was taking place outside the van. We saw people going by, cheering, as you say, giving us the high sign. He would wave back. He would smile. I would smile. There were people on overpasses holding signs. He was just excited to get home. He was excited. In fact, he said, "I'm on the freeway." Just something simple that we detest, being in traffic on the freeway. He loved being on the freeway.
It was strangely reminiscent of another ride O.J. took in a white vehicle.
But I don't know if he remembers that ride too much. Whereas this ride, he definitely remembers.
What do you mean he doesn't remember?
Meaning, he was in a very depressed state. He was not the man he is today in that Bronco ride.
June 17th, the day of the Bronco chase. Reading that letter. Thoughts looking back on it today?
I thought he was dead. I thought my friend was going to commit suicide. When I read that letter, I already thought he was dead. My thoughts on it today, I still thought he was dead, and it's been so long ago that it's like another world, another time.
When you arrived back at the Rockingham estate, O.J. hugged AC. We saw it there on the pictures from the helicopter, and then went inside. Yes. What was it like inside the house?
His sisters, his family, Kathy Randa, his longtime assistant, Nicole Pulvers, who had helped at the jail every day. Just his close friends were there, and it was so wonderful just to be in his home again. He raised his arms and said, "I'm home," when he walked in the door. And it was, it's really hard to describe. It was such a wonderful feeling.
Was there just outright celebration inside?
Yes.
They popped champagne? What happened?
There was crying. There was, it was just the euphoria. And later, I'd say an hour or two later, someone brought champagne. But there was so much going on, meaning he wanted to be alone at some times. He wanted to be in his room. He wanted to just take in his house again. 15 months living in a 9-by-7-foot cell, isolated, is very difficult, especially when you're innocent.
And yet he wanted to be on his own in his house.
That's correct.
For a few moments.
That's correct. So what went through his mind, I cannot say. All we did was give him the space he needed. It was just great to have him in his home.
How would you describe his mood generally today?
Very pensive, as you can imagine. I mean, very anxious. When they brought him over to the courthouse, he had to sit in the holding cell for several hours. They brought him over early. He was in the holding cell, not knowing his fate, not knowing what's going to happen, but knowing at 10 o'clock he would either be free or be locked up again.
Do you think he wondered whether he might be convicted?
Very much so. However, he knew that he maintained his innocence from the very beginning. He knew he was innocent, and he always put his faith in the American jury system. And he felt that these 12 jurors would make the right decision. But it was thrilling. It was wonderful to stand by a friend, stand by somebody you believe in, and have the American jury system validate your thoughts.
The question everybody's asking, what was the story with the bag?
I'm glad you asked. I feel I was wrongly smeared. I'm a successful businessman. I would never, ever be an accessory to any crime, let alone a double murder. If they really believed what they said in court, they would have charged me as an accessory. I did nothing, Stone. And I'd like to explain on this bag what really transpired.
The bag was full when O.J. gave it to you, and it was empty when you turned it over to the court.
That's correct, and I can explain that. When O.J. drove up to his Rockingham estate on the 13th of June in '94, his assistant Kathy Randa got out holding this Louis Vuitton clothing bag. I was raised to be a gentleman. I walked up to Kathy and I took the bag from her. And I walked up to the police officer and said, "I have Mr. Simpson's luggage with me. May I bring it in?" And he said, "You are not allowed on the premises." And I said, "But I have his suitcase here." And he said, "I don't care. You're not allowed on the premises." So they could, if they were so worried that there was some bloody clothing, as they maintained, the police would have taken it right then. Thereafter, they took O.J. down to Parker Center. I was standing on the curb. What was I to do? Leave the luggage on the curb? So I put the luggage in my car and took it home. Subsequently, and I left it in my trunk. Subsequently, we decided that O.J. could no longer stay at Rockingham. That was the next day. So he came to my home. The bag was in my trunk. I took it out, put it in his room. It stayed there.
Put it in his room?
In my home.
And your home?
That's correct. I wouldn't go through your luggage if you were a guest in my home, nor did I go through his.
So you never looked in the bag, you don't know what was in the bag, and it was ultimately returned to Kathy Randa and ultimately then taken back to The clothes or
To
whatever was
Rockingham.
inside returned to Rockingham.
That's correct.
And you were never present for any of them.
That's correct. So when we brought the bag into court and it was empty, naturally it would be empty because whatever was in it was taken care of by O.J.'s housekeeper.
But you understand why that creates some suspicion.
I didn't understand at the time. If you can appreciate and put yourself back to the time, back to the first week, I was helping a friend, and since the media was camped out at his home, I said, come and stay at my home for a couple days. Who knew what was going to happen? It's easy to look at it today, but back at that time, who knew?
While we're on the record here about you and your involvement in this case, there are some who felt that it was rather odd that you reactivated your license to practice law in the state of California immediately following these murders. Some suspicious that you were doing that in order to invoke attorney-client privilege, not have to take the stand, and therefore not have to do anything that might damage O.J. Simpson.
I'm glad you asked that, Stone. Robert Shapiro asked me the day he came into the case to renew my license. He told me, I cannot do this case without you. You know O.J. better than anybody. Shapiro had only met O.J. on a casual basis. So he said, you know his thoughts, his feeling, his demeanor. You know what the man is like. I need you in this case. That's why I did it.
Some startling remarks today from Robert Shapiro. Robert Shapiro saying today, not only do we play the race card, we dealt it from the bottom of the deck.
I had not heard that. I don't want to second guess any attorney in our case. I felt all of our attorneys did an excellent job.
But Shapiro said that he would never work with Johnnie Cochran again, and that he would never speak to F. Lee Bailey again. I don't think anyone had a sense that the divisions ran that deep.
We had problems. There's no question. But what I admire about all three of the attorneys you just mentioned is they all worked together. They did not let their personal problems get in the way of representing their client.
Were you surprised by the speed of this verdict?
I was surprised at first. Obviously, we're all shocked at how quickly the verdict came in. But after I got a chance to think about it, I realized that these jurors were never subject to the spin that the media put on this case. They were never subject to the legal pundits. They never read the press, never read their newspapers. So they had the benefit of sitting in that courtroom for 7 or 8 months, whatever it's been, and just listening to the testimony. So if you look at it that way, it's not that surprising.
The most memorable moment on this most incredible day for you?
Oh boy, that's a good question. I would say when he got out of the van and hugged AC, they were both crying, and I was right there, and it was so touching. It was bringing everything full circle with O.J. and AC and back to Rockingham again.
Do you have anything to say tonight to the Goldmans or the Browns? Both of those families still very much believing that O.J. Simpson murdered Nicole and Ron Goldman.
Well, let me first talk to the Browns. I knew Nicole for 17 years. I love Nicole. I grieve over the loss of Nicole as well as they, and my heart goes out to the Browns. And the same with the Goldmans. While I do not know the Goldmans, I have 4 children, and I can imagine what it's like to lose a child.
What have you told your own children about O.J. Simpson?
I said, in my heart, I do not believe he did it.
Kardashian says his friend O.J. Simpson plans to remain at his Rockingham estate for the next day or so. After that, he wouldn't say.
O.J. Simpson in a knit cap from 2 blocks away is still O.J. Simpson. It's no disguise. It's no disguise. It makes no sense. It doesn't fit. If it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
From Los Angeles, here again is Jane Pauley.
They did not have the burden of proof. That was the prosecution team's job. For 9 months, O.J.'s defense lawyers sowed seeds of doubt, and they took root in an acquittal. Lead attorney Johnnie Cochran arrived in the courtroom with a reputation as a savvy and smart trial lawyer, but the verdict on Johnnie Cochran isn't in yet. Did he win on the evidence, or did he play to emotions that had no place in the courtroom? Katie Couric has this exclusive interview.
He always said, I didn't commit these crimes. I would not, could not, did not. He's told everybody on the team that, and we believed him.
There has been a difference of opinion with many of the lawyers.
Let's talk about Robert Shapiro, your fellow defense attorney. Not a happy camper, apparently, has been saying some very disparaging things. He said he felt strongly that you all should not have used the race card and that you played it from the bottom of the deck.
Well, obviously, we disagree with that. We were the ones calling the strategy. Bob was pretty much on the sidelines by this point. As I've said before, we never played the race card. And as an experienced trial lawyer, I can tell you, we played the credibility card. It was a decision that we had to make. It would have been malpractice not to pursue Furman.
He said he felt very strongly that the Holocaust is the worst thing in history, that Hitler is associated with the Holocaust, and that you cannot make that comparison with a rogue cop.
This was an oblique reference that in no way trivialized the Holocaust, which I very, very much appreciate and understand. But for an African American, a man who says he wants to bomb or burn all African Americans, that's very offensive to African Americans also. And I tried to point this out in the context of this particular officer, Furman. And so I'm a little surprised by him saying that.
Bob Shapiro said he will never speak to Lee Bailey again, and he will never work with you again.
Well, that's fine with us. That's fine with us. I like Bob Shapiro a lot, but I don't think anybody on the team is in any great hurry to work with him again.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder in violation...
When you were sitting in that courtroom and you heard the verdict, what came over you?
It was almost a surreal experience. It was exhilaration. I was happy for him. I was happy for his family. I thought about those kids. I saw in one of the jurors' eyes what I believe was a not guilty verdict. And I turned to him and I said, I think you're going home today.
What did he say to you when the verdict was read?
He was just exhilarated. He says, I'm going to go home. I'm going to go. He kept repeating, I'm going home. I'm going home. Then I went back in the back. We prayed together, and they made arrangements. He was gone within about 5 minutes. He was out of there.
Did he cry?
Yes, he cried. He cried. It was very emotional. Very emotional.
Did you cry?
I didn't cry. My feelings were I felt exhilarated. I felt a sense of closure, but I didn't cry.
What was the clincher in your view?
Oh, I think once the glove demonstration started them on a spiral that they never recovered from, it threw them off. They'd been sailing along, and then they did this glove demonstration. The theory being that the murderer wore these gloves. Graphically, O.J. Simpson could not fit these gloves. They try to say, well, they don't fit. It's the latex. It's all those things. But they didn't fit. It got O.J. Simpson up. It got him over by that jury. And they never really, I don't think, recovered from that.
Let me throw out some names. I want your quick and honest response.
Okay.
Marcia Clark.
Tough, excellent prosecutor.
Chris Darden.
Sensitive, my friend.
O.J. Simpson.
The smartest client I have ever been associated with.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. The most perceptive. Absolute brilliance on occasion. Can predict what's going to happen. Can tell you people's reactions. A real student of people.
Glad it's over?
I'm glad it's over, Katie. It's been an experience of a lifetime.
And you can see more of Katie's interview with Johnnie Cochran tomorrow morning on Today. Still ahead tonight, reaction from Nicole's sister, Denise, and her father, Lou Brown.
To have seen the evidence in this trial, it is overwhelming. This is not now the Furman trial. This is a trial about the man that murdered my son.
The family of Ron Goldman is in seclusion tonight at their home, a media encampment most of the day. But at the family's request, the camera crews broke down their equipment and left to give the family privacy as they began to observe the Jewish holiday of Yom Kippur. They were devastated by the not guilty verdict earlier today. Fred Goldman called it the second worst nightmare of his life, expressing thanks to the prosecution team and doubts about the system.
Until the other day, I had, honest to God, no clue how many people in this office had worked day and night for a year toward one goal, and that's justice. This prosecution team didn't lose today. I deeply believe that this country lost today. Justice was not served.
Nicole Brown Simpson's family has maintained a public silence all day, but just a short time ago, Nicole's sister Denise and father Lou spoke for the first time since the verdict with our colleague at CNBC, Geraldo Rivera.
The trial is over. The welfare of the children supersedes everything else. As for myself, I am determined that Nicole's death was not in vain. I pledge myself in the fight against domestic violence, and I will continue to expose this dirty little secret that has been hidden too long.
Can you describe your reaction when it happened, the verdict?
Yeah, I was numb. I was absolutely numb. I couldn't cry. I had absolutely no feeling. I thought before it even happened, I told my sister, I said, you know what, I feel like I'm going to faint. I mean, no matter what way it was going to go, it was going to be very, very difficult. But I still think that there's a lot that needs to be said and a lot that needs to be done as far as, you know, the abuse that was involved. And I think that's where I have to speak up as far as on behalf of the children and on behalf of Nicole.
I heard that Simpson called the House. Have you started a discussion about the future?
He and I have not. He talked with Judy, and I haven't got into the details of that discussion, but...
Lou, do you think you can forgive this man sufficiently so that you can be involved in the lives of your grandchildren?
Geraldo, the actions of this man and how we assimilate one another is going to be the whole thing. And the reason that a lot can be overlooked is because of the children. The children have been our lives. And they are going to be our lives, hopefully, for many years to come.
Are you brokenhearted tonight?
Am I brokenhearted? No, I think I'm stronger. I really do. I think that maybe it's going to put a hardness on me. I don't know. But I really feel like justice will be served one way or another. I really believe that. And I think a lot of laws are going to be changed. A lot of stuff is going to be changed.
Our special edition of Dateline will continue.
Coming up, if you tuned out the world to watch the trial of the century, see what you might have missed.
It didn't have a lot of competition for big stories.
A year's worth of headlines in just minutes.
If you're having a hard time convincing yourself that the O.J. Simpson trial is really over, you're far from alone. It's dominated the headlines and the newscasts and the talk shows for so long, it seemed like everything else just stopped. It didn't. Tonight, Dennis Murphy has a look back at what you might have missed.
No other way he can go now. He's continuing north on the 405. Police have the freeway clear.
Maybe it was during the slow-mo Bronco chase the weird world of O.J. time began.
Everyone was screaming, "Come look at the television."
The clock itself in suspended animation for that hour and a half. 93 million channel surfers put down their zappers.
It was the #1 television event of 1994.
And it became a defining moment. The 90s version of Where Were You When President Kennedy Was Shot.
Good evening. An incredible drama and tragedy plays out on television.
Tonight, O.J. Simpson has surrendered.
On the scale of what's interesting, it's a 9.
Jonathan Alter is a senior editor at Newsweek magazine.
It didn't have a lot of competition for big stories.
carnage in Rwanda, Bosnia, and Oklahoma were events that caught our attention, but always faded. Weaving in and out of our favorite national television show, Judge Ito's Place, with its characters as familiar as the cast of Seinfeld, Marcia,
this is our case,
Johnny, and the day's often bizarre special guest, always there, like the weather, comforting,
Excuse me, Mr. Bailey.
as timeless as Lucy and Desi.
I hereby end 40 years of democratic rule of this House.
Often better TV than a revolution in Washington.
They were slashing spending for working poor families. They were increasing the defense budget. They eliminated the national education standards. They were gutting the Clean Water Act. And I think most of the American people didn't know it.
I saw a figure come into the entranceway.
As Alan Park, the limousine driver, told us what he saw in the shadows, the world outside that courtroom kept spinning. New leaders emerged in France, Mexico, North Korea, and Rwanda, to name a few. And so
And Tom each married other people.
16 Planet Hollywoods have opened, and how many Starbucks? 305. How long has this been going on?
Number one, all the way.
Well, the Houston Rockets came home with 2 NBA national titles. Mike Tyson took his pinstripes off, and Darryl Strawberry put them on. The Simpson trial lasted so long that Major League ball players went out on strike, missed a World Series, started and finished another whole season.
In the DNA, there are 2 kinds of base pairs.
It took so long that it had to have peaks and valleys. I mean, who stayed awake during the DNA phase?
Enough people stayed awake to create 185,000 new babies in Los Angeles County since the Bronco ride.
Pretty cool.
And in OJ Time on the Tube, the smash hits ER, and Friends were born. And 22 other TV shows were canceled.
My name's Forrest Gump.
The trial has gone on so long, Forrest Gump seems as distant as an early talkie.
I gotta pay.
But it was released less than a month after the Bronco chase. Was Simpson the end of a brief era of great courtroom drama? From Bobbitt to Menendez to Susan Smith. The world went spinning by with fresh catastrophes. Stars rose and fell, wars were fought, deals were cut. But ultimately, most faces and events took a backseat to OJ and the trial of the century.
Sooner or later, our obsession with this trial of the century has got to fade, perhaps when the next trial of the century begins. The Oklahoma City bombing trial is set to start sometime next spring. We'll be right back.
Dateline will return after these messages from your local station.
Tomorrow on Today, the latest reaction from the major players in the Simpson case, including more of our interviews with Johnnie Cochran and Robert Kardashian. And a reminder, we'll be back for Dateline Friday at a special time, 10 p.m. Eastern. But for tonight, we leave you with some enduring images of the case that captivated this country like no other. I'm Stone Phillips, and for all of us at NBC News, good night from Los Angeles.
To believe that the evidence was there.
I deeply believe that this country lost today. Justice was not served.
We never talked about a guilty verdict. We really believed in this case and in O.J. Simpson.
I knew that my son was innocent, and I know that prayer of the righteous prevaileth much.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, is this your verdict? So say you one, so say you all.
I'm going to ask everyone who is watching to pause for a moment. Remember why we're here. We're here for Ron, we're here for Nicole, and we're here for every other victim of violent crime.
Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder.